Let's see, I do want to, I'm going to speak on turning a baby girl into a wise lady. About 5 years ago, I believe, I taught a lesson on turning a baby boy into a wise man. I don't know, has anyone in here heard that message? I think it was about 5 years ago. I think the first time I spoke on that was at either a pastor's school or a ladies' spec that I used that. And this is just the same type of idea, only it's the girls. I was a little bit more afraid about the girls, so I didn't really want to say much about them. But I do have my daughters that are supposed to be in here, but they might be going on the regular schedule. So I'm going to be, while they're coming, I'm just going to talk about, are they here? Esther, is Hannah here? I think she's looking for you. So, do you have a phone? You don't have a phone. Push 3 and call Hannah and tell her everyone's here but her now. While she's coming, I will, as we, why don't I pray? That'll take up some time too, huh? Dear Jesus, I do need you. I need you very much. I love being a mother, and I thank you for allowing me to be the mother of such wonderful children. And I thank you for my adult children who have made me very proud and very humbled that I could be blessed in such a way. And I pray that you be with me now and, help me to say the things that would help these ladies. Help me share things that someone taught me that helped me be a better mother. Help me share the Word of God that always works. Please help them have the wisdom and the desire and the yieldedness to you to give them the ability to practice some of the things that I'm going to talk about today. In Jesus' name, amen. As a mother, you go through a lot of stages. I've been in a stage for a long time of motherhood. Mrs. Scott gets to have an empty nest. Well, I still have a 10-year-old at home. All my friends my age have empty nests, except for a few. A few of my buddies are with me. But you do go through a lot of stages. And so I'm just going to read to you a little bit about a mother's life in these different stages. You know you're in the baby stage when the word sterilize is what you do to your first baby's pacifier by boiling it, and to your last baby's pacifier by blowing on it and wiping it with saliva. And then you get into the toddler stage, and in the toddler stage you develop unique ways of doing things. For instance, here's a recipe for a mother's brownies recipe if you have a toddler in your home. First of all, remove teddy bear from oven and preheat to 375. Melt 1 cup of margarine in saucepan. Remove teddy bear from oven. Tell Junior no. Add margarine to 2 cups of sugar. Take shortening can away from Junior and clean cupboards. Measure 1/3 cup of cocoa. Take shortening can away from Junior again and bathe cat. Apply antiseptic and bandages to scratches sustained while removing shortening from cat's tail. Assemble 4 eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and 1.5, are you writing this down? And 1.5 cups of sifted flour. Take smoldering teddy bear from oven and open all doors and windows for ventilation. Take telephone away from Billy and assure the party on the line that the call was a mistake. Measure 1 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 cup of nuts, and beat all ingredients well. Let cat out of the refrigerator. Pour mixture into well-greased 9 by 13 inch pan. Bake 25 minutes. Rescue cat and take razor away from Billy. Explain to kids that you have no idea if shaved cats will sunburn. Throw cat outside while there's still time and he's able to get away. Now you can make the frosting while the brownies are baking. Mix the following in saucepan. 1 cup of sugar, 1 ounce of unsweetened chocolate, 1/4 cup of margarine. Take the stupid teddy bear out of the broiler and throw it away, far away. Answer the door and meekly explain to the nice policeman that you didn't know Junior had slipped out of the house and was heading for the street. Put Junior in playpen. Add 1/3 cup, dash of salt, and boil, stirring constantly for 2 minutes. Answer door and apologize to neighbor for Billy having stuck a garden hose in the man's front door slot. Promise to pay for ruined carpet. Tie Billy to clothesline. Remove burnt brownies from oven. The toddler stage. Then you get into the junior age, child stage, and you learn a unique way of looking at life through their eyes. For instance, there was a young junior age girl sitting in church, and they weren't real regular attenders, and the preacher was wired for sound with a lapel mic, and as he preached, he moved briskly around the platform, and he was jerking the mic cord as he went. It wasn't a wireless lapel mic. And when he moved to one side, getting wound up in the cord and nearly tripping and jerking it again. And after several circles and jerks, a little girl in the third pew leaned toward her mother and whispered, "If he gets loose, will he hurt us?" So then you have the child stage, and then you get a teenager. Then you get into that stage. And you learn that raising teenagers is like nailing Jell-O to a tree. You also learn that families are like fudge, mostly sweet with a few nuts. When you're in that teenager stage, you also find out that your mind not only wanders, it just sometimes completely leaves. And you also know that if you can remain calm, it's just because you don't have all the facts. But then you get to the grandmother stage. Now, I am in the grandmother stage, and in a moment... Did you find your sister? Oh, she's here. Come on up, Esther. I'll read a little bit about the grandmother stage, and then I'm going to introduce you to a very cute grandchild, and some daughters too. You might become like this lady who was traveling on a plane. I think Mrs. Scott might have been Mrs. Scott. It says, for 2 solid hours, the lady, I taught her everything she knows. For 2 solid hours, the lady sitting next to a man on an airplane had told him about her grandchildren. I'm sure this is Mrs. Scott. She had even produced a plastic fold-out photo album of all 9 of the children, only she only has 3. Okay, and 1 on the way almost. She finally realized that she had dominated the entire conversation on her grandchildren. Oh, she was so embarrassed. I've done all the talking, and I'm so sorry. I know you certainly have something to say. Please tell me, what do you think of my grandchildren? So we have a lot of stages. I do want to introduce you, since I'm talking about daughters, if you girls will come up here. Carly, you too. Let me get this here. This is Esther. She is our youngest daughter. She is a freshman at Hyles-Anderson College. And this is Hannah. This is our oldest daughter. She will be graduating in how many days? 27 days from Hyles-Anderson College. And this is our daughter-in-law. She's my adopted daughter now. I love her, and I couldn't have picked out a better daughter-in-law. If I had written down a list of what I want in a daughter-in-law, it couldn't have been matched more perfectly than what we have here. And this is Bryce. This is our little grandson. And I think those people behind the pulpit there can't see him, and they've got to see him. So, can you say hi? Say hi. Yeah. So, no way, Mama, Grandma. Okay, thank you, girls. You can go. And I'm very, very proud of my daughters. I believe my daughters love the Lord with all their heart. I know with a busy weekend like this, I knocked on Esther's door this morning. Hannah was in the shower, so I don't know what she did before she got in the shower, and Esther was in her room reading her Bible. And I'm very, very proud of my daughters. I don't take the credit for my daughters. God has been very good to us. But I do want to talk about daughters today, and Carly's going to help me. She's going to be my visual aid, because I'm not a good I can think of visual aids, but I either get so caught up in the visual aid I can't concentrate on my lesson, or I get so caught up on my lesson I forget I have a visual aid. So I have a helper who's going to help me. But I am going to talk about 8 things to teach if you want to help your baby girl become a wise lady. These are all Bible. These are all things that the Bible says, and I'm just going to try to help you apply the truths just a little bit. And you may even think of better ways than I have thought of to apply these truths. Maybe I'll just get your mind thinking along those lines. Proverbs 8:11 says, "For wisdom is better than rubies," and I better look at my time. 10:15. $10.50. Okay, got it. Okay, wisdom is better than rubies. All the things that may be desired are not to be compared to it. God says that all the things, can you think of all the things that you could desire in life? All the things that you could desire that your daughters be in life? God says nothing could compare to those things you could think of like wisdom. There's nothing you could teach your daughters or help your daughters obtain that would be more valuable to them than to be wise. And so I just want to share a few things. How I'm going to do this is at first we're going to talk about what a baby girl is like. And as we talk about that, we're going to see what we should do to change that so that we could turn her into a wise lady. First of all, I'm always amazed when I get a new baby. I was always amazed. I hope I don't get any more new babies home at our house. But when I would get a new baby into my home, I had forgotten how much they cry. Because that's the only way they communicate. They can't speak to you. They can't say, "You're so, Mommy, I love you." They can't say that yet. In fact, they don't say anything other than, "Give me, I want." They bawl. So I'm going to use bawl. You could leave that there for just a second. And if we want to turn her into a wise lady someday, we have to teach her that life isn't all about herself. And when she opens her mouth, it shouldn't be all about me. Please help me. I need something, and complaining and crying and whining. So one of the things we want to teach her, Proverbs 31:26 says, "She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness." So if we want to turn a baby girl into a wise woman, we want to teach her to speak with words of kindness. I think it's very important, our daughters' mouths, if we pay attention to what's coming out of them. It's really amazing. Do you know how it is? We tend to be more impatient and critical of people, especially in areas that we excel in. Is that correct? You're really good in an area, and they're not, and that's the area it's harder to be merciful with them. And those are the areas we tend to not be kind when we speak. And I think it's really interesting here, the virtuous woman, the woman who was the excellent wife, the hard worker, the businesswoman. I mean, this woman was a good homemaker, a good cook, a wise with money, good at gardening, kept herself in good physical condition, had never-ending energy. She could work long hours. She was a seamstress. She was concerned about the poor and needy. She dressed herself and her household in very sharp. She helped give her husband a good reputation. She was happy. She was a good mother. She feared God. I think she was a very well-rounded woman, don't you think? And yet she said, "I have a law when I open my mouth." And that law is, it needs to be kind, what comes out. So I just have a few practical things I think we as mothers can do to make sure. See, I believe wise words are kind words. And one of the ways you can teach your daughter to be wise is teach her to speak with kind words. I think it all starts at home. I'm kind of amazed, even in Christian circles, that we tend to have a philosophy that it's normal for brothers and sisters to bicker and fight. We didn't feel that was normal. We called that sin in our home. And we didn't allow our children, boys or girls, to bicker and fight with one another, even if it's brother and sister. Because I believe how you teach your children to live at home, the way they live at home is how they will live in their life later on and out in the world. What happens at home is the foundation. And so we didn't allow them to speak unkindly to one another. Our girls weren't allowed to belittle or to bicker or to fight. Now I'm telling you that they didn't do that, but we corrected it when they did that. I was at a ladies' conference once when there was a question and answer time, and there were other lady speakers there, and someone had asked a question, what do you do with your children when they are always fighting and bickering? And one of the lady speakers said, it's normal for brothers and sisters to fight. And I thought, well, it may be normal, but a lot of sinful things are normal. And I thought, we don't allow fighting. We didn't allow mean talk. So we started in the home. One of the ways to do that is there's a lot of videos, a lot of television programs, even Christian videos and CDs, like story time videos, where the children are mean to one another. And if we had something like that in our house, we wouldn't allow our children to listen to it. If they were not kind to one another, if the brothers and sisters weren't kind, and I don't mean they were unkind, it was corrected. I mean it was treated as this is how brothers and sisters treat each other. So, and then we didn't allow our girls to come home and speak unkindly about people at school. If they had some news, or if someone hurt their feelings, or if it was just a squabble, or they didn't like how someone did it, or they had a bit of criticism about someone at school, our words were usually, do you know there's only one person in this world you need to take care of, and that's you. And if you could get you in order, that's all you need to do. We don't need to hear about anybody else. And we didn't allow them to talk mean or critical. We stopped it right away. That their words would be kind. Now, they could come home and tell us all the wonderful things about everybody at school. They could tell us the good news about things at school, but they couldn't come home and tell us the bad things. Information should always go horizontal. No, this is horizontal. Vertical. Those hard words that aren't in my notes, so I don't know what to say. And it should. If it's not in my business, it's none of my business. And my girls were taught not to bring unkind things home, or even unkind words about an adult. If it had nothing to do with me, I didn't need to know. They didn't need to share it. Most of the time, it was venting frustration more than needing help. And of course, we never allowed the girls to talk unkind about myself or their dad. If they had a question in a respectful way, of course they could say anything, and that was about any situation. But when it was just unkindness, we didn't allow that. And we really tried to teach them, give them opportunities to use their words in a kind way. For instance, at home, I had them write notes to their daddy to tell them how thankful they were for him. I know, I'll tell you something that I've seen our ladies do in this church for their daughters. Rachel McDowell is the secretary in one office, and then Lynn Williams is the next secretary, and then I have my office as the third room. And I started noticing that on Lynn Williams' door, she has sweet little love notes from Jessica McDowell. And that's Rachel McDowell's little girl. How old is Jessica, Rachel? Oh. She's 8. And I thought, oh, that's nice. 9? Okay, she's 9 now. She, every year it changes. It's hard to keep up with it. I thought, oh, that is so sweet. And I think Mrs. Williams is in her Sunday school department. Okay, and I was thinking, oh, that is really sweet that she is writing those notes to her. And, and then one day I got a note on my door. So Lynn Williams, she's probably not in here, she's jamming little kids. But I thought, now Jessica, and Jessica I'm not anything to Jessica. I don't teach Sunday school with the little kids or anything. And she said, thank you for teaching the Ruth Esther class. It's such a blessing to our church. That's adult old ladies, I thought, I said, you know why she did that? Because she had a mama who's teaching her to use her words in kind ways. She just has a mama who wants her daughter to grow up and you have wisdom when she opens her mouth with kindness. And I thought that was really, really sweet that Jessica was so concerned about the Ruth Esther Sunday school class. Also, I think it's really important that your children be taught to not say mean things to their brothers and sisters, but to praise one another. I know when we hired Josh, Carly's husband, on staff, my kids are pretty spread out. Esther was a senior in high school, and Josh was on staff, and he started preaching in the school chapel. And I always ask my kids, how does school go? How was chapel? And I don't know who's preaching when. And so one day I asked Esther, I said, so how was chapel today? And she said, oh, it was really good. I said, well, who preached? She said, Josh did. And I said, oh, really? And she said, yeah, he is my favorite chapel speaker. And I thought, I am so glad that my daughters have kind things to say about their brother. Next of all, a baby girl, and if I get through this outline, it will be a miracle, ladies. A baby girl acts selfish. Aren't babies selfish? How many have ever worked in a nursery with little children? You know, one child has a toy and the other one goes up, may I please play with that toy? And the other one says, oh sure, I've had it long enough, right? Oh yeah, that's how our kids in our church act. No, the children are very selfish, and baby girls are very selfish. So one of the things we want to do, James 3:17 says, but the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality, without hypocrisy. I think one of the things you would like to do if you want to teach your daughter to be wise is to invest in others. I think that also starts at home. I think everything starts at home because that's where they live for 5 years at least, maybe 6, until they get pushed out in that horrible world with those mean teachers that won't understand them. But I think the Bible says in Proverbs 14:1, every wise woman buildeth her house. And of course, I think it starts with Daddy. I know in our home we talked about, we're doing this laundry for Daddy. We want to make sure he has clean clothes. It didn't matter if anyone else had clean clothes, but Daddy had to make sure he had clean clothes. Let's go wash Daddy's car. Let's get him a drink. Let's cook his dinner. We're cooking dinner for, not the family. We didn't cook dinner for the family. If Daddy wasn't there, sometimes we just had peanut butter sandwich or something. But no, I didn't always. But sometimes. Let's camp out in the front room and have peanut butter sandwiches. Daddy's not here. But we have to cook nice dinner if Daddy's there, because we're cooking for Daddy. So we're teaching them to live for others, and it starts in the home. Also, I really believe it's important that you teach your children to live for each other and to help each other out. One of my girls was visiting in a home with a girl that had children, a child her age, and that was a home that had a lot of children there, and the children were younger than the girls. One of them was a teenager, and the mother came to me after she had gone to that home several times and said, "How did you teach your daughter to be so helpful?" And I wasn't sure what she said, and I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, for instance, she was at our house and we were getting ready to come, I don't know if they were coming to church or go somewhere, and she just lined all the little kids up and got these shoes on and got this shirt on, and she just got everybody ready." She said, "My daughter doesn't even know what to do. Wouldn't even think of what to do." And I thought, well, I don't really remember setting out to say, teach her how to do that. I didn't say when you go over there, make sure all our kids get ready. It's just, we always wanted our daughters to think of the other, and if you can help the other person, but it was your brothers and sisters. It wasn't just the people that would know what you do and would see your children. It's what happened in the home. Sometimes we let so much go in the home because we don't think anyone knows about that. But if something someone can see, oh, now we got to come down on that. And you know, I'm not raising my children for you. I'm raising them for God. And He lives in our house too. I hope He lives in your house. He's there. So teach them at home to help with one another. Also not to be selfish. You know how children always want the best seat? How about in the car? We did not allow our boys or our girls to say, "I get the front seat." Oh man, if my husband ever heard any of our kids say, "I get this," they would be in the back seat forever. The worst seat in the car, you know. They'd be riding on the back bumper everywhere we go, hanging on for dear life. I don't know what they would do, but they would never have the front seat for a long time because we didn't want our children to grow up be selfish. In fact, if one of them did sit in the front seat, they knew the next time we got in the car they were not to even go near the front seat, because now they would go to the back seat because it would be someone else's chance to get in the front seat. It's not even a bad idea when they go to the front seat to say, "Has it been a while since anyone else has been up here?" children can do these things. They really can. And you know what? They'll be happy. Because do you know what? When you're living for others, aren't you happier? And when your children are living for others, they're happier. A baby girl is also belligerent. I had to use the word belligerent because it started with a B, okay? But they don't like to be told what to do. And I know that's not exactly, I looked up the definition, it isn't exactly, but it's close enough. They don't like to be told what to do. They want to do it their way, and they'll fight for their rights. Right? Proverbs 10:8 says, "The wise in heart will receive commandments." You must teach them to have a submissive spirit. And each one of these are a lesson in themselves, so I'm skimming over this. But, of course, you have to have consistent discipline to do that. And this isn't a session on submission or obedience, but your discipline's not complete until there's an attitude of resistance. That's the one thing I want to just say right here. If your child... I have no resistance. I said that wrong. If your child is still resisting you, the discipline is not over. And you need to remember that. Until they agree with you, the discipline is not over, or the lesson has not been learned. And so you as a mother cannot give up until that lesson is learned. It doesn't really matter what else has to be done that day. The lesson has to be learned if you want to teach your daughter to be submissive. So whatever the issue is, and I'm not going to go into issues, but whatever the issue is, you have to win. And winning means they agree with you. I'm sorry, Mommy. I shouldn't have done that. Either in spirit or in words. Just because they quit doing it doesn't mean the issue is over. There needs to be no resistance there. And I can't go into a lesson on that, but one of the things that you as a mother could do to help accomplish this is, first of all, they need to see you have no resistance to your authorities. And I believe that is the greatest way to get submissive children. I just don't believe it's possible until you become a submissive person yourself. Be careful what authorities you place them under. Be very careful. We can choose our children's authorities, so be very careful that you don't put them under ungodly or unreasonable. And I don't mean you just didn't agree with how the school teacher did something. Maybe God wanted the school teacher to do it that way to teach your child to be submissive. But I mean ungodly. Be very careful about your child's authorities. And your attitude authority, of course, is your greatest teaching tool. And usually the closest authority to you is your husband. And as they see you respond to his authority, you are teaching them by example how they should respond to your authority. My mother was an amazing lady. I thought I had a perfect father. I really did until I was about 16. I really thought I had a perfect father. And then, of course, when I got older, and I started looking at my dad kind of as an adult, I started realizing, my dad isn't as perfect as I thought he was. And then when I started going to church and learning a lot of things at church, I realized even more so, because my parents didn't go to church, that my dad wasn't near as perfect as I thought he was. But why did I think he was so perfect? Because my mom treated him like he was, never made a mistake. And she wasn't even in church, ladies. She just had a tremendous amount of respect for authority. She's the same mom who taught me, if that school teacher tells you to do something, you do it. If you get spanked at school, you're going to get spanked at home. She's the mother who taught me authority is right. And she transferred that to my father. And then you know what? When I went to church and got saved and started learning about God, it wasn't hard for me to realize God was an authority. The Bible was an authority. If the Bible said it, you did it. It was just a simple concept for me. And I didn't really, and of course I don't always do it. I can't tell you I'm perfect. But I know it's the right thing to do. Why? Baby girls yearn to be heard. Do you have any chatterboxes in your house? I do have two girls. One is more of a chatterbox than the other. The other one sometimes needs to be drawn out a little to talk a little bit more. But they yearn to be heard. And also they usually want to be heard now. Pull on the skirt. Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. Proverbs 17:28. Even a fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise. Oh, don't you love that verse? I just say, if I just want people to think I'm wise, I just got to shut up, That's easy. Well, it isn't easy, though, is it? And he that shutteth his lips is esteemed a man of understanding. So we want to teach them to be eager to listen. Teach them to be eager to listen. Let's see how I'm doing on my time here. Okay. There are times you need to tell your daughters, it's time to be quiet now. In a kind way, but say, I think you've talked enough. My husband has said that many times to, especially one of my daughters. Let's let someone else talk for a while. And the problem was, I have two daughters. One is a real talker, the other one isn't. And I had a son, and my older son isn't really much of a talker. And they would be glad to let that one do all the talking. But we knew we needed to draw them out some and let them, kind of get them to talk a little bit more. My husband and I are a little different in that area. He is the talker too, and he's not a girl. And I'm the one that would be just glad to listen. I tend to get myself in trouble when I talk. So it's really better just avoid all conversations. My husband might get himself in trouble, but he doesn't know it. Or he doesn't care, I don't know. Or my daughter too. But teach them not to interrupt. I think that's a real important thing for your daughters. Teach them to wait for an appropriate time to come to you, to stand quietly by your side, and not to just come in and interrupt what's going on. Teach your daughters not to walk into a room talking. It's very important. It's just good manners. Warn them not to talk too much when they go to someone's house, especially if you have a chatterbox. Now remember, I've said that so many times. Don't talk too much. Stop and think. Is there anyone else talking here? Who's doing the most talking? Am I listening as much as I talk? And we would try to help them understand that. Make them stop and look at you when you speak to them. Because you need to teach them sometimes a chatterbox is not a good listener. So when you speak, make them stop, make them look at you with their eyes, and speak to them. Make them answer you when you speak to them. They should always answer you. Yes, ma'am? I understand. They need to answer you. Ask them to repeat what you say. Sometimes you have to do that. Doesn't always, but sometimes it's helpful to make sure they really listen. Another great way to teach your girls to be good listeners is read to them. I think reading to your children teaches them to concentrate and to listen, and it's good time too. But hold them in your lap, let them sit beside you, and read a lot to them, and they will learn to be good listeners. Baby girls get tired easily. Don't they get worn out quickly, especially when it's work? They can play all day long, but if you have some work for them to do, they're so tired. I'm kind of the same way. Shopping? Oh, yeah. But I got to vacuum the floor. I'm just too tired to do that. You work all day, and you get home, and you're exhausted. Now I have to do laundry. But you can work all day, and your friend could call and say, you want to go shopping? You say, oh, yeah, sure. So don't get so hypocritical about your children. We've all got the same problems, but I think you need to teach them to like to work if you want them to be wise. Proverbs 6:6, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways, and what? Be wise, which having no guide or overseer or ruler provideth her meat in the summer and gathereth her food in the harvest. I think work can be a very fun thing. Now, I like to work. I like to accomplish something. I am more of a work goal person than a people person. I would much rather, at a ladies' conference, I would much rather clean the bathrooms, work in the kitchen, and make the bulletins than stand up here. That really is my comfort zone. I would much rather do that. That's not what God has asked me to do, so obviously I am up here. But so this is an area that my mom did very well in with me. I liked to work, but I wanted my girls not just to be able to work. I wanted them to enjoy work. One of the ways we did that is we worked together. I think you should play with your children. I think you should. But I really think you will gain a lot of relationship with your children working with them. And a closeness. We dusted together. I don't care if your child can walk and carry something. When you're dusting, give them a rag. They could dust anything they want. You dust the low things, I'll dust the high things. Of course, you're going to dust everything they did over again. And then when they get old enough, they notice you're doing that. You have to be really, really sneaky. But most of the time, they don't notice. Teach them to let them vacuum. Hang on to the vacuum. Here we go. He said, it takes me twice as long to do the work. It doesn't matter. because and be happy while you're working. Make them think this is so fun. Wash dishes together. Oh, that is so fun for little girls. All that soap and suds. Now forget the dishwasher for a while. We have dishwashers now. Just fill the soap up, the sink up with soapy water. Give them a chair to stand on, and don't worry about whether they fall or not. Put pillows around the chair if you're worried about it, and let them get in that soapy water, and let them help you wash dishes. And then sing songs while you work. Help it to be fun. Plan a reward when the job is done. I always did that, especially in the summertime. I'd say, now, we have this to do, and this to do, and this to do, and when we're finished, we're going to go get ice cream, or when we're finished, we're going to read a story, or when we're finished, we had something we were working towards. So it was like, oh, let's hurry up and get this done. Let's get this work done, because then we're going to do this, whatever. The best time to build a relationship and closeness with your daughters is while working together. And then I think that's in your home, but I think it's good to work together for others also. I think it's good to make a meal. One of the greatest ways to teach your daughters to cook is to make meals for other people. So you know what, so-and-so is sick, so we're going to make a meal. And that's why, ladies, sometimes you think, oh, let's just go to Kentucky Fried Chicken and buy a bucket of chicken and drop it by. Sometimes we just need to stop and realize we're a mother and say, we're going to make a meal. We're going to cook a meal together, and we're going to drive over together, and we're going to drop it off for this family. Then you're teaching your daughter to live for others and to love to work for others. Bake a plate of cookies. That's even easier. Bake a plate of cookies, and even if you don't know who you're going to give it to, say, let's bake a plate of cookies, let's take it to church, and let's pray and ask God to help us figure out who needs these cookies. And I want you to keep an eye out, and I want you to look around and watch, and then you come tell me who you think we should give the cookies to. Teach them to work for others. And I think you should teach them to enjoy working, even in school. We try to make homework fun, and there is absolutely nothing fun about homework, ladies. But we always have rewards. We always have, okay, let's get this. Homework is the same way. Get your homework done, because we're going to, me and Josiah are Uno spin people. I don't know if you know what Uno spin is, and we're also rummy cube people. And so I always say, Josiah, you have to get your chores and your homework done, because then we're going to play rummy cube. And if you don't hurry up, we're not going to have time. And so we're working together, and when he does his homework, we get our papers back on Monday in our school, everything he did the week before. So I usually sit down and I go through those papers, and any major mistakes he made, we go through each paper and we talk about why that was a mistake and how he needed to do it different and how he could fix it, just so I know that he's getting the work. His teacher probably doesn't really believe I do that, but I do that. Baby girls are indiscreet. Does a baby girl care if she runs around with no clothes on? No, she doesn't care. Or if she sits with her dress up? No, she doesn't care. But if we want them to become wise women, we want to teach them to be appropriate. Or wise ladies, I'm sorry. Proverbs 16:21, the wise in heart shall be called prudent. I think it's real important, ladies, that we teach our girls how to sit, how to stand, how to walk. Now, these aren't things you teach in one day and it's over. This is a process of teaching throughout their ages. At different ages, you're going to develop this a little bit more. How to wear their clothes. Teach them to be prudent when they get dressed in the morning. Teach them what to look for. Really, the Christian school should not be teaching your girls how to dress. Hyles Anderson College should not have to teach our Christian girls how to dress. Mama should be teaching them how to dress. I think you all got a really good pamphlet handed to you at the door that will help guide you on that. That's a biblical Bible study, on what the Bible says about our appearance. And so on the appearance, that will help you. But mother, it takes a brave mother in our society today to help her daughter know how to dress right. And it takes a determined mother to determine that her daughter will dress right. But I think our daughters need to know why. They don't need to just be told, you can't do that, you can't do that. I think we as mothers should teach them to please God because the Bible says this. So anyway, prudent. Acting with or showing care and thought for the future. And a wise lady is a prudent lady. Ask them to ask themselves, if I wear this outfit, can I do what I need to do today? I'm not just talking about modesty. I'm talking about appropriate. For instance, shoes. ask your daughter to choose the shoes she wears by what she's going to do that day. Because if she chooses these big high heel shoes and she's going to be doing some activities, that wasn't appropriate. If she's going to choose tennis shoes and she's going to be standing on the platform singing a special, she wasn't appropriate. So we want to teach our daughters to be appropriate. How long her skirt is. And I know they should always cover the knees. But sometimes they should be even longer because of what she's going to do that day. Teach her to be appropriate. I've told our girls, I said, you can wear these straight skirts that just barely cover your knees. But I want you to think about where you're going to sit. Because when you sit in those skirts, do you know how careful you have to sit? You have to sit so careful with your knees so together and sit so straight. Because if you don't, whoever stands in front of you sees right up your skirt. And I told them, so if you want to have to sit that careful all day long at school, you can wear that. But you need to realize, and I've even in my class called the girls up and said, everyone don't move. So-and-so come up here and tell me what you see. And let her look at the girls in the class, in the front row, and in whatever rows you could see and say, is that what you want people to see when they look at you? No. And I could say, tell them what you saw. Now let the teenage girl teach these girls how important it is that they be appropriate. Even how you talk. We live in a very crude world. And I'm amazed at how crude our girls talk and the slang that they use. And you want to teach them to have pure words. No talk about outward appearance with guys. Teach your daughters, you never mention anything about your body when guys are present. You don't need to mention your hair. You don't need to mention your nails. You don't need to mention, you really even talk about your clothes when guys are present. Guys don't really need any encouragement to think about a girl's body. I think that just kind of happens on its own. Don't talk about anything that would call attention to the body. Teach your girls to be appropriate in their talk. Our baby girls are ruled by their feelings. Isn't that true? I don't know if we ever grow up from that one, but if you want them to be wise, you need to teach them to have a disciplined spirit. I believe that's what the word is under there. That's why it's so important you correct your girls' attitudes as well as their actions. Stomping feet, rolling eyes, deep breaths. How about the silent treatment? How about going into their room and staying, closing the door, and blocking out the world? We had a rule. We have Josiah. Boys are so different than girls, but we had a rule in our home. You could not go in your room with the door closed unless you were reading your Bible or changing clothes. Because we're a family. Unless they were reading their Bible or changing clothes, their door was open. And we had a little one. Esther was 8, and Hannah was 12, and Josh was 15 when Josiah was born. And toddlers get into everything, right? And we had a little one that they would want to close their door because he would get into their room. So what our solution was? We taught the toddler not to go in the open door. We didn't say, okay, I'll close your room because he'll get in there. We taught Josiah when he was walking, you don't go past this door. We didn't put a gate up. He knew what would happen if he stepped across that threshold unless somebody took him in there. And that was what we did. And so they didn't have to fear their little brother getting in their room into their things. And guess what? They loved their little brother. He wasn't a brat. He wasn't a pain. Josiah never had brothers and sisters. He had 5 parents who just loves him. But we teach them to rule their spirit. Teach them to do hard things. We taught our girls to eat things they didn't like to eat. How can my daughters surrender to God to go serve Him on a mission field if they can't eat good food in America they don't like? I wanted them to be able to do anything God wanted them to do. So we sat at the dinner table a long time eating things. Now, I wasn't cruel. I didn't put on a pile of food. It's hard to eat things you don't like. Isn't it hard? But I taught them they could do it. So I'd put a little bit on the plate, and they'd get it down. I say, there's tricks. You could swallow it whole like a pill with your milk. You don't have to taste it. I taught them all kinds of tricks. They said, but you can do it. But you've got to figure it out. I didn't care if I didn't ever tell them they had to like it. I just told them they had to do it. I taught them they had to smile when they felt grumpy. know their husband will love that someday. I want them to be a good mama. And I want them to have the self-control they need so when they have a bad day, they don't take it out on their children. They know how to rule their spirit or discipline their spirit. L, baby girls like their own way. And this is a little repetition here. But we must teach them to yield to God's way. Psalm 111:10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all they that do his commandments. His praise endureth forever. We had, as soon as our girls could read, when they were little, we've read the Bible to our children every day since they were born. My husband, when they were babies, he always fed them their first breakfast once they started eating, and he would feed them their food, and he would read the Bible. He'd put food in their mouth, read the Bible. Put food in their mouth, read the Bible. And he does that still. He puts the food in their mouth and reads the Bible. Now they could put food in their own mouth, but every morning, my husband has always done breakfast. That's the one time a day we're all home. That's the one time a day he's home. He's not always home for dinner, but he's always home for breakfast. He's just made that part of his schedule. And every morning, he gets breakfast together, and we sit down, and he reads the Bible. So that has been done. But once they could read themselves, we had a schedule time our children read their Bible. All the way till they were 18 and they left the house. Then they're on their own. If they read their Bible, they read the Bible. But when they lived in our house, everyone who lives in our house reads their Bible. I don't care if they like it. I don't care what, I do care, but it doesn't, I can't control that. I can't control whether they do anything, they accept it, but I could control that they're going to sit in their room with their Bible. They could look at it, but they're going to have a time with their Bible. And of course they all did enjoy reading their Bible, and they did, I believe, get something out of it. But we'd always, and I had a time they knew I read my Bible. They know this time I was reading my Bible from the time they were real little. But also we were every church service. Church was a priority. There was nothing more important. If church was going on, that's where we were, unless someone was very sick. Also, I had them read good biographies. Clara Barton, Gladys Allward, Helen Keller, Abigail Adams, Susanna Wesley. Those were just some of the books I went in just now to look, before I came here, to look on my daughter's bookshelf to see what kind of biographies were on her bookshelf in her room. Model books about godly ladies, and I always wanted them to have good role models, and we have some wonderful lady role models in this church for our girls. I knew I could never raise my children on my own, by myself. I needed help, and I've had so much godly help from ladies in this church, and I pushed them toward godly role models. That's why these lady speakers that we bring out are such good examples for our daughters. Proverbs 13:20, he that walketh with wise men shall be wise. So I was very careful. I haven't talked about what to keep them from, but of course if you want them to have good role models, you need to keep them away from bad role models. But my daughter one of my daughters was getting to be very good friends with a girl who belonged to a family. They did attend our church, and she belonged to a family, and this is years back, so don't try to figure out who it is. I know ladies, who that was. They were here, and she was becoming very good friends with this girl, but I knew that the mother in that home was not a submissive wife. And I knew that the values of that home were not like our values in our home. And I knew that they had a whole different direction and agenda in their Christian life than what we did in our life. And she was getting close to this family, and she was going over there a lot. And you could tell, sometimes as a mother you know that something's not right. And I thought, I wanted to, as a pastor's wife too, you have to be so careful. I wasn't sure how to end this situation, but I knew I didn't want my daughter around that family. Now, I didn't have any problem with the girl that she was friends with, but I just knew I didn't want her. This was a family that I think they were a nice family. They were nice people. They were likable people, and they had a lot of things, and it was very attractive. And I was a little concerned about the influence. And I fight for my children. I want them to do God's will for their life. And I thought, you know what? And I talked to my husband, and he said, well, let's just do this. Let's say you need to invite this girl to our house. And so that's how we switched that around. We just started inviting that girl to our house a lot. And that worked out better. But ladies, we just need to be so careful with our daughters and who we let them around. But anyway, if you want to turn a baby girl into a wise lady, there is a simple Bible outline for you. And thank you for listening. Let's pray. Dear Jesus, I do pray that